10th place, Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. Yeah, I know your brain wants to scream, no way, they're broke. But that's one of the biggest misconceptions in the fandom. This is the marriage that started in a tent and ended with a Gringotts vault. Ron Weasley spent 2 years as an Auror after the war, then left to co-run Weasley's Wizard Wheezies with George. And this matters because the joke shop was already an enormous money spinner, the most popular storefront on Diagon Alley, actively expanding toward Hogsmeade, and selling products that occasionally set fire to things on purpose. Ron walked in as a co-owner with full profit sharing on a business that had zero competition and near unlimited demand from Hogwarts students alone. Now meet the other half of this household. After the Battle of Hogwarts, Hermione Granger started her ministry career in the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures, moved to the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, and eventually became Minister for Magic, the single highest political position in Wizarding Britain, with a salary to match. So, the combined picture: one half owns a share of the most successful retail operation in magical Britain. The other half literally runs the government. Together, that's entrepreneurial profit plus head of state salary, a combination most pureblood dynasties never managed to assemble. And let's be honest, Ron would get the burrow, so that adds more to the marriage. 7 floors, a full garden full of gnomes, and a kitchen that produces the best food in the wizarding world. Prime estate by any measure. 9th place, Luna Lovegood and Rolf Scamander. When you think of Luna Lovegood getting married, Neville Longbottom is probably your first guess. But Luna married Rolf Scamander, grandson of Newt Scamander, the wizard who wrote Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. That textbook has been required reading at Hogwarts since 1927. By the 1990s, it was in its 52nd edition, with nearly 70 years of mandatory student purchases, reprints, and international editions generating royalty income on a scale most wizarding businesses would envy. And Rolf inherited all of it. And honestly, Luna never looked rich. Homemade jewelry, Spectre specs made from magazines, and a general vibe that screamed eccentric louder than wealthy. But start counting the actual assets and the picture changes fast. The Lovegood estate is a fully owned multi-story magical modified tower sitting on private land. The family also owns The Quibbler, a fully independent wizarding publication that somehow survived public ridicule, ministry pressure, and boycotts without ever shutting down. That's either a loyal subscriber base large enough to sustain it or pre-existing family wealth quietly funding the operation. Probably both. And let's not forget, after the war, Luna became a celebrated magizoologist, traveling the world to discover and classify new magical creatures, although she eventually accepted that the crumplehorn snorkack did not exist. Together they spent their lives globe-trotting and chasing creatures most wizards would run from. The Scamander wealth runs on autopilot. Textbook sales keep printing whether the heir is in a boardroom or knee-deep in a niffler den somewhere in Patagonia. 8th place, George Weasley and Angelina Johnson. By now, you already know that Weasley's Wizard Wheezies is one of the most profitable storefronts on Diagon Alley, a 1,000-galleon startup that turned into a retail empire with expansion plans for Hogsmeade. After Fred's death, the shop became both a business and a memorial, and George kept it thriving. He's co-owner, creative engine, and the face of a brand that prints money every September when a fresh class of Hogwarts students discovers skeeving snack boxes for the first time. Angelina Johnson, former Gryffindor Quidditch captain, Dumbledore's army veteran, Battle of Hogwarts survivor, married George sometime after the war, and by all available evidence, never pursued a professional career. No ministry post, no shop counter shifts. When your husband's business generates the kind of gold that Weasley's Wizard Wheezies does, you get the rare luxury of doing exactly what you want with your time. Wild idea, I know. But in a world where most witches and wizards work until retirement, marrying into a self-sustaining joke empire is its own kind of financial magic. They had 2 children, a son named Fred after the uncle who started it all, and a daughter, Roxanne. The Weasley name used to mean stretched budgets and secondhand everything. In this household, it means the most successful brand on Diagon Alley, and a family that can finally afford not to count. 7th place, Draco Malfoy and Astoria Greengrass. So, Draco Malfoy inherits the full Malfoy fortune, land seized during the Norman Conquest, centuries of ministry influence, a mansion in Wiltshire loaded with dark artifacts, and vaults that survived 2 wizarding wars without a single galleons confiscated. The Malfoys walked free every time because plausible deniability is the family's actual heirloom. His wife, Astoria Greengrass, brings the Greengrass estate, another ancient pure-blood fortune equally untouched by public scandal. Her family held a place on the sacred 28 long before anyone turned that list into a political political statement. Land, private vaults, and influence that predates the ministry itself, all quietly maintained by a family whose entire financial strategy was 3 words: invest, inherit, wait. No careers necessary. Together, this marriage merges 2 of the largest inherited fortunes in magical Britain. Quick note, this is also the marriage Lucius and Narcissa disapproved of. Astoria refused to raise Scorpius with pureblood supremacist values, which made family dinners at Malfoy Manor uncomfortably quiet. 6th place, Orion Black and Walburga Black. Orion Black was the son of Arcturus Black III and Melania Macmillan, the direct male heir to one of the largest, oldest, and wealthiest pureblood dynasties in magical Britain. Walburga Black was the daughter of Pollux Black and Irma Crabbe, also a Black by birth. This is the marriage where the House of Black married the House of Black and kept every last Knut in the family. So now let's count the assets. The centerpiece is 12 Grimmauld Place, a massive ancestral townhouse in London, hidden from Muggle view and fortified by Orion with every security measure known to wizard kind. Concealment charms, unplottable status, wards powerful enough to still function decades after his death. This is prime London real estate that doesn't officially exist, which in the wizarding world makes it priceless. Beyond the house, the Black family Gringotts vault, old enough and deep enough to rival anything the Lestranges or Malfoys had stored underground. A collection of dark artifacts so dangerous they had to be sealed away permanently, hidden under the drawing room floor, some of which Mundungus Fletcher later tried to sell on the black market, which tells you they had to street value even as stolen goods. Goblin wrought silver, centuries of accumulated heirlooms, a golden ring with the Black family crest that made Creature physically weep when Sirius threw it away. And then there's the part that doesn't fit in a vault: political weight. The Blacks were sacred 28 aristocracy with bloodline connections to the Malfoys, the Lestranges, the Rosiers, and the Crabs. Neither Orion nor Walburga worked. Neither needed to. Here's the irony. This household ran entirely on inheritance, and the inheritance was so vast that it funded 2 sons through Hogwarts, absorbed a disowned heir giving up his claim, survived both parents' deaths, and still left enough behind for Sirius to pass Grimmauld Place and the remaining Black estate to Harry Potter years later. And speaking of Mr. Potter, 5th place, Harry Potter and Ginny Weasley. Harry Potter married Ginny Weasley, and when it comes to combined wealth, this couple might have the most lopsided starting point in wizarding history. Harry inherits the entire Potter vault, a fortune built on Fleamont Potter's genius, who perfected Sleekeazy's hair potion, sold the company, and left behind enough gold to fill a Gringotts vault to the ceiling. Then Sirius Black dies and leaves Harry Grimmauld Place along with whatever remained of the Black estate. 2 major pureblood fortunes, 1 heir, 0 siblings to split them with. Dumbledore left Harry a share of his estate. Snape had no one else, so Harry got that too. Add his career. Harry became an Auror immediately after the war without any WTs, which is either inspirational or deeply unfair depending on how you feel about standardized testing, and eventually rose to head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. That's a senior government salary on top of a fortune he's barely touched. Now add Ginny. She played professionally for the Holyhead Harpies, one of the top Quidditch teams in Britain. Professional Quidditch players are the wizarding world's equivalent of Premier League footballers, which means her earnings during those years were likely enormous. After retiring from the pitch, she moved to the Daily Prophet as senior Quidditch correspondent, trading a broom for a quill but keeping the profile. So the Potters aren't old money or new money. They're all the money, inherited, earned, gifted, and quietly compounding in a vault Harry probably forgets to check. 4th place, Lucius Malfoy and Narcissa Black. Okay, Lucius Malfoy was independently wealthy and never held a formal job. His actual profession was influence. If he had Instagram, he'd be an influencer. Hair like that, manner like that, 1 million followers minimum. He donated enormous sums to the Minister for Magic, funded St. Mungo's Hospital, sat on the Hogwarts Board of Governors, and kept so many ministry officials in his pocket that when he faced charges as a Death Eater after the First Wizarding War, the trial was practically a formality. The imperious defense worked because Lucius had already paid for the verdict long before the courtroom doors opened. Narcissa Black brought the other half, the prestige, the bloodline, and the social armor of the House of Black, one of the oldest and most feared dynasties in wizarding Britain. Her name alone opened doors that even Malfoy Gold couldn't unlock. Of course, course, there were solid assets as well. Narcissa brought gold from two sacred 28 bloodlines, the Blacks through Father Cygnus, and the Rosiers through her mother Druella. Two ancient houses don't marry off a daughter empty-handed, which means inherited property and land came with the name. Together they turned Malfoy Manor into the political nerve center of pure-blood Britain. Lucius handled the ministry, Narcissa handled the social hierarchy. The household ran on wealth, intimidation, and a house elf named Dobby, who was eventually freed by a sock, which remains one of the most expensive personal losses in wizarding history. And here's the part nobody talks about. After the Second Wizarding War, Lucius traded information on fellow Death Eaters to secure the family's freedom. The vault stayed, the manor stayed, the Malfoy name took a hit, but the fortune survived intact. Because in the Malfoy playbook, gold always outlasts reputation. Third place, Rodolphus Lestrange and Bellatrix Black. Rodolphus Lestrange was also Sacred 28, with generational wealth stored in Gringotts vault so deep it required a dragon just to guard the entrance. The Lestrange vault contained mountains of gold, cursed treasure, and security enchantments. Voldemort trusted this vault so completely that he hid a Horcrux inside it, which says everything about the level of protection and paranoia that family money can buy. And outside Gringotts, the Lestranges held estates accumulated through centuries of pure-blood intermarriage. Land and property merged from the Blacks, the Rosiers, and half a dozen families whose names didn't survive long enough to argue about it. Bellatrix Black brought the House of Black, centuries of aristocratic prestige, inherited dark magic and a fortune rivaling anything the Lestranges had stacked underground. Two sacred 28 vaults merged on paper through a marriage that was purely transactional. The catch? Bellatrix married Rodolphus because it was expected of her, an obligation to the pure-blood tradition, nothing more. She showed no affection toward him, never mentioned him in conversation, and never had children with him. Her devotion belonged entirely to the one with no nose. Rodolphus, for his part, fought loyally alongside her as a Death Eater, but was functionally invisible in his own marriage. Both spent 14 years in Azkaban for torturing the Longbottoms into permanent incapacitation. Both escaped and returned to Voldemort's side. Bellatrix died dueling Molly Weasley. Rodolphus survived and inherited a vault he'd barely touched in decades. So, on paper, this was the single wealthiest union in pure-blood Britain. Second place, Fleamont Potter and Euphemia Potter. The Potter fortune already existed before Fleamont. His ancestor Linfred and Stinchcombe laid the groundwork centuries earlier by inventing remedies that evolved into potions still sold in the modern wizarding world, including Skellygrow. His father, Henry Potter, sat on the Wizengamot. The family had gold, land, and political standing long before Fleamont ever picked up a cauldron. Then Fleamont graduated Hogwarts and created Skleekeezy's hair potion, marketed it with promise that 2 drops tame even the most bothersome hair. The potion exploded internationally, even making the front page of the Daily Prophet for winning over American wizards. Sales alone quadrupled the already considerable Potter fortune. And when Fleamont retired, he sold the entire company for what's described as a vast profit, turning a cosmetics brand into generational untouchable wealth. Euphemia's background is less documented, but the couple lived comfortably long enough that neither appears to have needed additional income. They had one child, James, born late in life after they'd given up hope of ever having children. They spoiled him accordingly, which tracks with a family that could afford to. The Potters also inherited the Cloak of Invisibility through the Peveril line, which isn't gold but is literally priceless. Fleamont and Euphemia both died of dragonpox shortly after James's wedding, within days of each other. They never met Harry, but they left behind a vault full enough to fund 3 generations. But what if you could skip all of that and just manufacture gold directly? First place, Nicholas Flamel and Pernell Flamel. Nicholas Flamel is the only known wizard in modern history to successfully create the Philosopher's Stone, a legendary alchemical object capable of transforming any base metal into pure gold. Actual unlimited gold production, on demand for as long as the stone existed. And it existed for centuries. Nicholas was born in the 14th century. He and his wife, Pernell, used the stone's second function, the elixir of life, to sustain themselves for over 600 years. 600 years of compounding wealth with zero overhead, zero competition, and zero mortality. The Flamels lived modestly and avoided political power entirely, which is the most terrifying part. They had the resources to buy Ministry, Hogwarts, and probably Gringotts itself, and chose not to. They funded Beauxbatons, their old school, and spent their later years in Devon, enjoying opera and keeping an impossibly low profile for the richest couple on the planet. Then Voldemort came looking for the stone, and Nicholas made a decision that no one on this list would ever consider consider. He destroyed it, willingly gave up both immortality and infinite wealth, keeping only enough elixir for him and Perenelle to settle their affairs before dying. Canon never says where the Flamel fortune went, which means there's either a vault deep under Gringotts with 6 centuries of unclaimed gold gathering dust, or the greatest wizarding fortune in history simply vanished with 2 quiet old people from Devon. Either way, nobody else on this list even comes close. Now you know who married rich, but do you know who got rich first? All 12 richest wizarding families in Harry Potter explained in detail. That's your next lesson here at Stickman Hogwarts. Click now, the Flamel Vault is still unclaimed.